They all raced back towards Josuke's house, hearts pounding with every scrape of Okuyasu's stand. He stretched out his arm, and with a swipe of the hand, the space before them vanished. Each scrape yanked them closer, the world blurring and collapsing as they clung to him. It was truly a brilliant use of his ability. Even Jotaro was impressed. Josuke knew this would help them get there much faster than just running or taking a taxi. In a series of stomach-twisting leaps, they reached the Higashikata household in a few short minutes.
"We're here,"
Okuyasu announced. They all let go of him, Koichi wobbling as he fought to get over his dizziness from the jerky trip. Jotaro didn't waste a second, though. He ran into the house, bursting through the front door. Josuke followed after him. The house was shrouded in darkness. No one was here. The shrine in the corner of the living room was untouched. The arrow sat where Jotaro left it, gleaming faintly in the porch light streaming from the open front door. Josuke exhaled in relief. They weren't too late. But Jotaro didn't relax.
"Don't let your guard down. Killer Queen will still likely make an attack."
"What?"
Koichi said as he and Okuyasu made their way into the room.
"Why would he? Now that we're all here, he'd be an idiot to try going up against the four of us alone."
"He's been searching for this arrow for weeks. Now he knows exactly where it is. He'll be desperate, so despite the overwhelming odds, I have no doubt he'll try to take it from us tonight. Not to mention..."
Jotaro paused to turn the lights on in the house.
"He could have another ally with him that we're not aware of."
Josuke clenched his fists.
"Then let's just take the arrow and get the hell out of here!"
"No, that'll just make us easier prey,"
Jotaro said, sharp as ever.
"If we're out in the open, we're finished. They could strike from any direction and we'd have no way of knowing from where. We hold our ground here, where we know the terrain."
There was a pause.
"So, we're just going to have to defend it all night?"
"Yeah, exactly."
The room went quiet as they all thought. Josuke could tell that everyone hated the idea of sitting around, waiting to be ambushed. But Jotaro was right. The best course of action was to make their stand at the house, where they were familiar with the battleground.
"Fine,"
Josuke reluctantly agreed. The arrow was set back in the shrine, the small alcove suddenly feeling more like a fortress. Outside on the front lawn, Jotaro and Josuke stood with their backs to the house. The faint summer breeze rustled the grass, the pale yellow of the streetlight lamps making it hard to distinguish anything. Every faint movement made Josuke tense, not sure if it was an enemy. Jotaro seemed calm, however. His poise permeated his stance, but his eyes were sharp and searching. Josuke remembered Jotaro must have had tons of experience with life-or-death battles like these from his trip to Egypt. He sighed, wiping his sweaty palms on his uniform jacket. He tried to remember that if he was going to succeed in this encounter, he had to remain calm and observant, just like Jotaro had taught him when they had been chasing after Buggy and the rat. Okuyasu and Koichi were inside, guarding the arrow in the living room. Koichi's stomach flipped at every small sound he heard. It was terrifying, not knowing when they were going to be attacked, if at all. As the night wore on, Jotaro scanned the street for the 100th time. There was still nothing. He looked back towards the house. He told Koichi to send them a signal with echoes the moment anything went wrong, but so far there was nothing. Just unbearable silence, only broken by the hum of street lamps and Josuke's occasional nervous pacing on the grass. As he watched Josuke, he thought about how close the boy had come to dying today. It was only thanks to Okuyasu and Koichi showing up at the harbor when they did that allowed his plan of fooling Otoshi to succeed. He let out a small breath, knowing how lucky he'd been with that. Then he remembered what Tomoko had told him.
"She had an affair with Joseph Joestar when he came to Japan 16 years ago. You old bastard. I always said Grandma Susie was your one and only."
He furrowed his brow. If what Tomoko said was really true, that would explain the star birthmark he'd seen on Josuke's shoulder back when they'd first met at the Nijimura house. He meant to do some research on the Higashikata family at the library and see if their bloodline intersected with the Joestars at all, but he hadn't had time with all the craziness going on with the arrow.
"Josuke, is it just you, your mother, and grandfather in this house?"
Josuke jumped at the sound of Jotaro's voice.
Yeah, why?"
"I was just wondering about your father."
Josuke seemed caught off guard, frowning slightly.
"Why do you want to know about that?"
His voice was a tad harsh.
"Unless you'd rather not talk about it."
Jotaro turned away from him, looking back out towards the street. There was a long, awkward pause.
I don't know anything about him. Every time I've tried to ask my mom about it, she only tells me that she was in love when she gave birth to me. And that's all that matters. She won't say anything else, no matter how much I press her.
Jotaro said nothing, only nodded.
But it's never really bothered me. I mean, I've always had my grandpa, and he's as great as any dad ever was. Besides, my dad can't be that great of a guy. I'm guessing he probably didn't leave her any way to reach him, and he never contacted her afterward. Not even when I was dying from a fever as a little kid.
Jotaro turned back towards Josuke abruptly, surprised in his gaze.
Would you quit your pacing?
Koichi stopped abruptly as Okuyasu snapped at him and began wringing his hands.
Sorry.
Koichi said in a small voice.
I know you're scared, but going around acting like a little nervous wreck isn't going to help anything.
Aren't you scared?
Nuh-uh. I'm ready for this prick to show his face.
Koichi was about to give a sharp reply, but stopped himself. He remembered that Killer Queen was responsible for the deaths of Okuyasu's father and brother. There was something else bothering him, though.
I thought you said your brother deserved what happened to him.
He did, but it doesn't make it any easier. And my father definitely didn't deserve what happened to him.
Okuyasu suddenly stretched and let out a loud yawn.
But anyway, I don't like thinking about all that sad stuff. Let's just focus on keeping our post and grinding Killer Queen into the dirt when he shows up.
Where do you think he'll—
Shh!
Okuyasu's gaze was trained on the window at the back wall. He stared intently at the darkness beyond it. After a few seconds, nothing happened.
What is it?
I thought I saw.
Okuyasu began to make his way over to the window as Koichi's heart started pounding.
Wait, did you say a fever?
Yeah?
Josuke was confused at Jotaro's reaction.
That sounds pretty bad. What happened?
Josuke furrowed his brow as he fought to remember.
It was a long time ago, when I was around 4. My mom says I was really sick for almost a month and a half. She had to take me to the hospital in a snowstorm. That's how bad it was. I was a knock away from death's door the whole time, and there wasn't anything the doctors could do. But then one day, I suddenly got better, like it never happened. My mom always said it was the weirdest thing.
He expected Jotaro to lose interest in the mundane nature of the story like most people did, but instead Jotaro looked at him like he had just told him some great secret of the universe. Even stranger than his reaction was his next question.
What year were you born, Josuke?
Why are you asking me all this?
Josuke shot back, beginning to get irritated. Jotaro's gaze was sharp, cutting through him.
Just answer.
1983.
Jotaro thought for a moment before replying.
If you were around 4,
He muttered more to himself than Josuke.
then you were sick in 1988.
Yeah, I guess so.
A thought occurred to Josuke, and suddenly Jotaro's serious nature seemed to make a bit more sense.
Isn't that the year you went to Egypt to go kill that Dio guy?
Okuyasu came closer to the window, his breath fogging the glass. The night outside didn't move. No sound, no shift, just heavy black pressing against the glass like a curtain. Koichi began to inch closer as well, his hands shaking. His senses felt supercharged, ready to fight for his life at any moment. Every nerve in his body was sparking, ears strained for anything. A car, a dog, the ticking of the wall clock, but there was only silence.
Do you see anything now?
He whispered to Okuyasu. Okuyasu kept staring, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond. Several moments passed, and still there was nothing. Finally, Okuyasu turned away from the window, sighing.
Yes, I imagined it.
He sounded like he was trying to convince himself more than Koichi. Koichi stayed where he was, still petrified, the hair on the back of his neck prickling. Suddenly, 2 blood-red eyes blazed to life in the darkness, their malicious light cutting straight through the glass. Before Koichi could even think to say anything or call out, the sound of splintering wood began to tear through the wall next to him.
Yeah, it was that same year.
Jotaro said.
So, you think they're connected somehow? I don't see how that's possible, though.
Answer this. When did you first awaken Crazy Diamond?
What's that got to do with it?
Jotaro didn't say anything, only staring in annoyance at Josuke.
I've been able to use it for as long as I can remember. Ever since I was a kid, I've always been able to use my stand. No one was ever able to see him, so I never could tell anyone about it. Angela was the first person I ever met who was able to see it, and that's when I knew there had to be others out there with powers like mine.
Jotaro didn't say anything, his gaze fixed on the ground, deep in thought.
Are you finished grilling me about my life story? I can't believe you'd ask me about all this now, right when we're in danger. An enemy can sneak up on us with all this chit-chat.
Josuke,
Jotaro suddenly cut in.
your story reminds me of... Listen, I think there's something you should know.
Before Jotaro could say anything else, the sound of an explosion split the air, rumbling the ground. Josuke instinctively ducked, covering his head, but nothing touched him. He chanced to look at the house, expecting to find it destroyed, but it still seemed intact. His heart spiked in panic as a scream rang out from inside. It was Koichi.
Koichi!
Josuke ran to the house, Jotaro hot on his heels.
Okuyasu!
It was all Koichi managed before the wall became an inferno of destruction, debris and hot cinders flying around him. Koichi felt himself flying through the air and he slammed into something. Okuyasu's grunt sounded in his ear. When he opened his eyes, he found himself laying several meters away from where he had been before. Okuyasu was underneath him on the ground.
He pulled me away from the explosion with the hand.
A jagged hole gaped in the far wall, edges glowing faintly with traces of green light that bled away into the night. Dust drifted in lazy clouds, stinging the lungs and stinking of scorched concrete. Koichi felt his skin begin to throb, covered in tiny cuts and burns from where the explosion had hit him. He turned and saw Okuyasu looking pretty injured as well, blood running down his face from cuts on his forehead.
Okuyasu!
He cried out.
Are you alright?
Never better.
Okuyasu pushed Koichi off of him and stood up, the wind knocked out of him from Koichi landing on him.
You good?
I think so.
Koichi said, though his voice trembled.
Then, let's...
That was when the footsteps thundered from the hall. Jotaro and Josuke burst through the door, but they had no time to take in the scene. The air suddenly rang with a piercing chime, and from the darkness came another cascade. Green explosions of fire, countless and razor-sharp, slicing through the dust like meteors. They struck the ground and walls, detonating on impact with bursts of malevolent light. The room lit up like the heart of an explosion, a rolling storm of detonations that made the air sear and shudder.
What the?
Josuke threw up his arms, Crazy Diamond half manifested. But Jotaro was already moving, his eyes hardened, hat casting a shadow over his face.
Star Platinum, the world!
Time itself froze. The explosions locked in place, cutting to silence. Explosions suspended mid-detonation, the air filled with frozen fire like a battlefield sealed in glass. Jotaro didn't waste a moment. He strode across the chaos, weaving between suspended blasts, each one frozen on the floor. Each strike like a thunderclap in the silence. His hand shot out and grabbed it, the arrow in the shrine, gleaming even in the stillness, caught in the middle of the storm. He turned back towards Josuke, his jaw tight. Time surged forward again. The explosions roared to life in a chain reaction, swallowing the room in fire. Jotaro's hand slammed against Josuke's chest, Star Platinum lending it an unstoppable force.
Josuke, get out of here!
Josuke staggered, shoved bodily through the doorway just as the blast wave consumed the room behind him.
Jotaro!
Go! I'll deal with Killer Queen. Find the user.
Josuke stood in the foyer for just a moment, trembling. Then he grit his teeth and bolted out the door as more explosions showered behind him. Josuke stumbled out the front door, feet pounding across the steps like they had a mind of their own. The night air hit him like a splash of cold water, but it did nothing to clear the panic buzzing in his chest. He panted, still trembling from Jotaro's shove. He would have kept blindly running if he didn't see something quick zip across his field of vision. He stopped. He stared ahead at the street, squinting. Was there something? Something shimmered just ahead of him, then vanished. At first he thought it was just a trick of light, dust from the explosions caught in the moonlight. But no, there it was again, a faint glint, hanging in the air like a thread stretched too thin. It vanished again. Josuke frowned, jaw tight. He crouched and grabbed a broken stick from the ground and tossed it toward the glow. The stick sliced cleanly in half midair, the pieces spinning down to the grass with a soft thunk. Josuke froze. Sweat trickled down the side of his face. What kind of trick was Killer Queen playing now? He had never done anything like this before. This was something faster than his eyes could track. Nothing he knew that Killer Queen was capable of. The silence pressed in, thick, suffocating. And then, a voice slid from behind him, smooth and venomous.
Josuke Higashikata, I've been waiting a long time for this.
Josuke spun, Crazy Diamond erupting into being at his side in a burst of light and fury, its fists clenched, muscles flexing, ready to strike.
Killer Queen.
The stand materialized behind the voice, eyes glowing with cold hunger, hand raised for the kill. Josuke grit his teeth, muscles coiled to defend. Back in the wrecked living room, the world was nothing but smoke, fire, and the smell of blood. Okuyasu lay half-propped against a broken beam, not moving. His uniform was scorched and shredded, and blood dripping from a dozen cuts, ugly burns covering most of his body. The hand's mark carved a raw line into the floor where he'd erased part of the blast before it reached Koichi. He pushed himself upright, still shaking.
Okuyasu, you saved me.
Okuyasu didn't respond. Koichi felt his heartbeat spike. He put his ear to Okuyasu's chest, relieved to find a heartbeat still there. If Josuke healed him, he should be okay. Jotaro loomed over them, star platinum flickering at his shoulder. The arrow was clutched in his hand. He was injured as well, but he stayed steady, voice low and urgent.
We can't stay here. It's too dangerous.
Koichi shook his head fiercely.
I'm not leaving Okuyasu behind!
You'll die if you stay.
Jotaro snapped, eyes darting towards the shifting smoke.
We have to go help Josuke.
But he... Look over here.
The voice drifted from the rubble, cold and mocking. Koichi and Jotaro whipped their heads towards the sound. The smoke stirred, the shadow moved, fluid, predatory, slipping through the haze faster than the eye could follow. The sensation of something watching, stalking. And then it vanished again, leaving only silence and dread in its wake. Jotaro's stomach knotted. Something wasn't right. He couldn't place it, but every instinct screamed danger. And then he saw it. Through the dust, crawling from the debris, a small metal form. It made a whirring noise as it moved, its shiny metal body gleaming. It was like a miniature toy tank, with a dome-like body and a detonator on its back. The front of it was fashioned with a skull, 2 eyes glowing with crimson hate. The miniature tank stand revved forward with a mechanical whine. It froze for a moment like it was looking for something. Then its eyes blazed brighter, locking onto Jotaro and Koichi. Then it lunged.